Senator Chisholm, we'll move to question time, the first question time of the 48th Parliament, and Senator Cash.
Thank you very much, albeit from opposition, but my question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Can the Albanese government rule out any new or increased taxes on Australian taxpayers or businesses in this term of parliament?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Wong.
Thank you. Well, and I thank the honourable senator, the leader of the opposition in the Senate, for the first question in this place of the 48th Parliament. I'm very pleased to receive it. And what I would observe is that it does demonstrate that the coalition haven't listened and haven't learnt. Haven't listened to the message of the Australian people, haven't learnt from the message that was sent to them at the last election, that the negativity and scare campaigns and obstruction from those opposite didn't get a great response in the Australian community, and I would have hoped.
Senator Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Cash.
Thank you, President. Point of order in relation to relevance. It's very obvious. The answer to the question is you're not going to rule it out. There are going to be more taxes, and I would ask you to draw the minister to the question.
Senator Cash, I remind the Senate. Order. I remind the Senate. We all might be a bit rusty. I accept your point of order, but there's no need to go into what was a response. And I believe Senator Wong was getting to the point, but I'll remind her again of the question. Senator Wong.
Thank you, President. And you would know that our economic plan, Senator Cash, and I would say to you, Senator Cash, it's a very early point to take an interjection. Very early point.
40 seconds.
Yes, I know you're very keen. I'm sure you're very keen to have a fight. We're very keen to govern. We're very keen to pass legislation that matters to the Australian people. So you can keep wanting to have a fight. We're going to deliver the agenda we were elected to. Our economic plan is about Australians earning more and keeping more of what they earn. That is what our economic plan is about. But of course, there are those who who are open to tax changes, including capital gains tax. I was interested to read the member for Groom's comments today. I think there are some real issues we need to address. I'm open to a discussion on CGT. I'm open to a discussion. I'm surprised you're interrupting me, Senator
Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Cash.
For the second time today in relation to the first question of the 48th Parliament, I hope this is not going to be how Senator Wong treats us. It is a point of order on relevance.
Senator Cash.
The senator is not being relevant.
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Wong is being relevant to the question, and I will ask her to continue.
Talking about capital gains tax, which Senator Cash used to be very interested in. I'm also observing the leader's approach to the 48th Parliament appears to be to give lectures during taking points of order, but obviously that's a matter for you, President, how much lenience you will show to that. I would just make the point. I make the point that there are those in this place who are open to a discussion on capital gains tax, and certainly Mr Hamilton, the member for Groom, is one of them. And I do wonder if you've raised your concerns with him.
Thank you, Minister Wong. The time for answering has expired. Senator Cash, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Will the Albanese government confirm that there will be no changes to negative gearing arrangements during this term of parliament?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Order. Order. Senator Cash and those on my right. Order. Order. Senator Wong, I've called you to answer the question, so I think we've got order now, so if you go to the first supplementary.
President, well, those of us on this side are wondering if they've actually updated their question time pack since the last term, because I think I had many of these questions almost precisely in the same form in the last parliament. You know, as I said, haven't learned, haven't listened, same old opposition, same old Liberal Party. We haven't changed our tax policies, and as you know, we do have a housing policy. It is very detailed. It includes both demand and supply measures, and it doesn't include those measures. But I am interested in the conversation that the member for Groom appears to have started.
He's in opposition.
Have you finished the question, Senator Wong? Yes. Senator Cash. Order. Order. I'm waiting particularly for senators on my right. Senator Cash, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Will the minister confirm that Western Australia will continue to receive a guaranteed level of no less than 75 cents in the dollar for GST funding, and there will be no changes to this arrangement?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Wong.
Well, I think we've made our position on the West Australian GST very clear. During the election, the Prime Minister said so in Western Australia many times. And I would note, Senator, that you might recall that the former Leader of the Opposition was the person who was questioning those tax arrangements.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Senator Mulholland.
My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. In May, the Albanese Labor government took a positive agenda to the election, and the Australian people voted to re-elect the government with an increased majority. That's right. How will the government continue to build Australia's future?
Great question.
Thank you, Senator Mulholland. Senator Wong. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Well, Senator Mulholland, thank you for that question. I acknowledge your first question, which, as the opposition knows, is obviously not your first speech. But I'm very pleased to get a question from you, because it goes really to the issues about why we are here. And it is we are here as a re-elected government, and we face the 48th Parliament, with great humility, but an even greater sense of purpose. An even greater sense of purpose. We were entrusted on the 3rd of May with a great opportunity, and that opportunity was to continue to build our country's future, to continue the work of making Australia a fairer country, where Australians from every background, every walk of life, have the opportunity to achieve their aspirations. We do live in a time of great uncertainty and challenging strategic circumstances, so it is really important to recognise that on May 3rd, Australians voted for Australian values, for fairness, for aspiration, for opportunity, for all. Values that have held us in good stead, and I am confident will continue to as we face the challenges to come. And Australians voted for strong, stable democracy and an orderly and sensible government. Australians voted for fair wages and conditions, and to strengthen Medicare, to build even more urgent care clinics, to protect our world-leading pharmaceutical benefits scheme, and to continue to seize the opportunities of cleaner, cheaper, renewable energy. Australians voted for greater access to education, for fee-free TAFE and more investment in early childhood education, and Australians voted for fully funded public schools and 20% off HECS debts, and to help people earn more and keep more of what they earn. Australians voted to enable more Australians to build a better future for themselves and for their families.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Senator Mulholland, first supplementary.
The Albanese Labor government focused on easing cost of living pressures in its first term, delivering tax cuts for every Australian, cheaper medicines and energy bill relief, amongst other measures. How is the government building on the progress Australians have made over the last 3 years?
Thank you, Senator Mulholland. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Well, we know cost of living is front of mind for many Australians, and that's why it's been front and centre in every budget that we have delivered. And the second-term Albanese Labor government will continue to provide support to Australians under pressure. The very first piece of legislation introduced into this parliament is one to cut student debt by 20%. This will save around 3 million Australians an average of $5,500 each. And we are introducing a new $1,000 instant tax deduction. And from the 1st of January, no Australian will pay more than $25 per script for a medicine on the PBS, and for pensioners and concession card holders, the price of a script will be frozen at $7.70 until 2030. We're not only providing immediate cost of living relief, but we are also driving a productivity agenda led by the Treasurer, with a goal to drive economic growth, boost productivity, strengthen the budget and secure the resilience of our economy in uncertain times.
Thank you, Senator Wong. Senator Mulholland, second supplementary.
The Albanese Labor government has always been focused on delivering and governing for all Australians. How is this reflected in the 48th Parliament of Australia?
Thank you, Senator Mulholland. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator. Well, one of the things that makes me most proud to stand with my colleagues from the Australian Labor Party is that we are a government for all Australians. And in order to govern for all Australians, it's important that we are a government that reflects modern Australia. We have the youngest person ever elected to the Senate, who gave a great speech today, and the youngest woman ever elected to the Senate. I am so happy. I'm so privileged as I watch the first speeches, particularly in the other place to date, that I am part of the most diverse parliament and government in the nation's history. A caucus, once again, with a majority of women, more culturally and ethnically diverse members so we can better reflect our nation as it is. We are a government of all Australians, for all Australians. And while some sought to use the heat of a political campaign to sow division and conflict, we will bring people together the Australian way.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Ruston.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. During the election campaign, the Prime Minister promised Australians, when they visited the doctor, and I quote, "Under Labor, all you'll need is your Medicare card, not your credit card." The Health Department estimates 23% of GP clinics will not take up the bulk billing incentive. Can the Minister confirm whether the Prime Minister still stands by his promise that every Australian will only need their Medicare card when they visit the GP?
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Minister Wong.
Well, it's very clear that during the election, the Australian people voted for the only party that they trust to deliver stronger Medicare. Exactly. Stronger Medicare. And that is, of course, the party that created Medicare. We are the party that created Medicare and had to do so against the wishes of the coalition. It was built once by a Labor government, torn down by a coalition government and then rebuilt. And for many years we know that the Liberals sought to tear it down. Then they changed tactics and pretended that they actually supported it. But we all know what their real agenda is, and we saw it again, for example, in the 2014 budget when the former Leader of the Opposition—
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Ruston.
President, on a matter of relevance, I don't believe that the Minister is going anywhere near answering the very simple question that I asked in relation to the Prime Minister standing by a promise that he made.
Thank you, Senator Ruston. I will draw Minister Wong to that part of your question. Minister Wong.
Thank you. Thank you. I think the Prime Minister made very clear what our position was, that we were expanding very substantially the tripling of the bulk billing incentive, which was put in place in November of 2023, the largest investment in bulk billing in history, which has worked. More than 9 in 10 visits to the GP were free for people eligible for the incentive. Since we've tripled the investment, we've seen a turnaround in bulk billing, and we have seen bulk billing increase in every state. This was—
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Ruston.
Very much, President. Once again, on relevance, I was very clear in my question about the Prime Minister's promise that Australians would only need their Medicare card when they went to the doctor. She has not gone anywhere near addressing that question.
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Order. Order. I did draw the Minister to your question, and the Minister is being relevant to your question. Minister Wong.
In relation to the modelling of the program, which I think is really the nub of what you are asking, on page 1 of the media release of the election, during the election or prior to the election campaign, announcing the policy, the modelling shows that 3/4 of practices will be fully bulk billing, and that will take us to 9 in 10 visits to the GP being bulk billed. That was the clear position that was put out. As I recall, Senator Ruston, you sought to match the policy. Unfortunately, Australians didn't trust you with it.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ruston, first supplementary.
Thank you very much, President. Once again, the Prime Minister promised Australians during the campaign, when they went to see the GP, all you will need is your Medicare card, not your credit card. Could the Minister please advise how many people in the last quarter had an out-of-pocket cost when they visited their GP?
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Minister Wong.
Senator Ruston, you would know that that data is published. You would also know that the government has progressively, as I explained, in November of 2023 increased the bulk billing rate and made an additional commitment prior to, or in the context of the last budget, in relation to additional bulk billing incentives. I would say to you that the government's modelling estimates lead us to be confident that 9 in 10 GP visits will be free by the end of the decade, which is what the Prime Minister was very clear about during the campaign.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Senator Ruston, second supplementary.
Thank you. I'd be keen to understand from the minister what the average out-of-pocket cost for visiting a GP was in the last 12 months. And I was wondering whether the minister could explain her comment in her previous answer that the government increased the bulk billing rate.
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Minister Wong.
We have. I probably should have used the term incentive, if that's what you're referencing, but thank you for picking me up on that. I'm very grateful. We tripled the bulk billing incentive, and then we extended the tripling of the bulk billing incentive to more Australians, because we are the party that actually wants to ensure that Medicare is strengthened for Australians. If you have an issue with that, Senator Ruston, that is unfortunate.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Ruston.
I was wondering whether the minister might come to the question, which is what the average out-of-pocket costs were for Australians.
Thank you. That was part of your question. Order. Senator Ruston, you've just called a point of order. Senator Watt. You just called a point of order. I'm responding to that point of order. That was part of your question, but the minister is being relevant to the whole of your question. Minister Wong, please continue.
Thank you. As I said, as the senator would be aware, that the government is transparent about those figures. Those figures are released regularly, and the senator spends a lot of time in Senate estimates asking questions about them. I would also make the point that this is the same senator who described Medicare as unsustainable. We on this side believe that it is important for governments, it is imperative for governments to continue
Minister
to
Wong.
invest in bulk billing. I'm sorry, Senator Ruston, if you have an issue with that.
Thank you, Senator Ruston. Senator Waters.
Thanks, President. My question is to the new Minister for the Environment, Senator Watt. Peter Dutton promised to approve Woodside's mega gas plant in the Burrup Peninsula within 30 days of the election. Not to be outdone in delivering for major political donor Woodside, the Labor government gave draft approval in just 15 days, conditionally approving a carbon bomb that emits more than all the coal-fired power stations in Australia, all the way out to 2070. Minister, will you cancel the conditional approval?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator Waters, and can I publicly congratulate you on your election as the Leader of the Greens. I do look forward to you delivering on your commitment to work more constructively with the government in this term. I very much welcome those remarks that you made. I assume that the Greens have heard the message at the last election that being obstructive to progress on environmental matters is not the route to electoral success. On the question that you've asked, Senator Waters, as you say, I have made a proposed decision to approve an extension to the existing onshore Karratha gas processing plant on the Burrup Peninsula, made subject to strict conditions. It hasn't suited the Greens' narrative around this topic, but the decision that I was required to make under the Act related to the potential impact of that project on the Indigenous rock art, the incredible 50,000-year-old rock art present on the peninsula. And what I said in the statement that I issued on the day of my proposed decision was that the strict conditions that I had applied to the proposed decision are particularly related to air emissions levels and their potential impact on the rock art. So the Greens have tried to conflate the issue of climate change with this decision, which was about the potential impact of this project on the rock art. The conditions that I have applied to the proposed decision are all geared towards the potential impact of this project on the rock art, and that impact has been central to my decision. One other thing that the Greens have not wanted to acknowledge as it relates to this project and my proposed decision is that the government in its first term, legislated the safeguards mechanism and strengthened the safeguards mechanism. And I might point out the Greens voted for those changes. So the Greens were comfortable with a safeguards mission which requires this project to reduce its emissions by 5% a year and become net zero by 2050.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Watts, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. The marine heat wave that's caused the toxic algae bloom off Adelaide's beaches, that's seen tens of thousands of sea creatures wash up on the beach, is climate-driven. Minister, do you acknowledge that approving more coal and gas projects like the North West Shelf risks more dead wildlife on more beaches right around the country?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Waters. And as I've already said publicly on a number of occasions, I, as the Environment Minister, but I think all Australians, particularly South Australians, are extremely concerned by the toxic algal bloom that currently sits in South Australian waters. And that is why our government this week approved $14 million, being half of a $28 million support package for South Australia, to support their leadership of the response to this algal bloom. Now, the government, I'm not entirely sure what the Greens' position is as it relates to net zero or emissions, but the reality is that our policy is about supporting net zero by 2050, but in the meantime reducing emissions. Of course, we have a legislated target of 43%. We'll be announcing a new target this year. But the safeguards mechanism, for example, something the Greens said was okay when they voted for it, is already requiring these kind of projects to reduce their emissions. If you disagreed with that then, you should have voted against it. You voted for it, so you must—
Senator Waters, second supplementary.
Thanks, President. Billions of dollars of public money each year in fossil fuel subsidies worsens the climate crisis and delays the transition. As Environment Minister, what are you doing to redirect those billions away from fossil fuel companies and towards environmental protection?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Watt.
Thanks, Senator Waters. Well, we're obviously entering into a different portfolio now. It's really a matter for the Finance Minister representing the Treasurer. But what I will say, as a member of the government, is that this government is very proud of the fact that we have taken more action and delivered more investment in the renewable transition than any government in Australia's history. We are the first government to set an ambitious interim target by 2030, and we'll have a more ambitious target still when it comes to 2035. We are investing enormous amounts of money in renewables. We have also taken a whole range of other measures to tackle climate change. We are party to international treaties. And the thing that distinguishes the Labor Party from the Greens Party on this matters is that we are not just a party of protest, we are a party of progress. We are a party that actually comes to parliament to deliver real reform rather than grandstanding and protesting and achieving absolutely nothing. We make no apologies for making progress on tackling climate change, and we will make a lot more over the course of this term.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Whittaker.
Thank you, President. This, of course, is not my first speech. My question is to the Minister representing the Treasurer, Senator Gallagher. In its first term, the Albanese Labor government worked hard to support Australians with the cost of living by getting inflation down, real wages up and the lowest average unemployment in 50 years. On the 3rd of May, Australians voted for a government determined to continue delivering policies that mattered to them and made their lives better. On 1 July, a long list of practical policies designed to support Australians took effect. How will these changes help support Australians with the cost of living?
Great question. Thank you, Senator Whittaker. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. Can I just acknowledge Senator Whittaker and welcome her to this chamber. Look forward to hearing all of the first speeches from our wonderful addition on this side of the chamber and across the parliament. But yeah, thank you for the question. I'm looking forward to working with all of you in this next term of government. And as Senator Whittaker pointed out, we have had a range of measures come into effect from 1st of July, and that shows you the continuation of the approach we took last term, moving into this term of government, where we'd made decisions and funded those decisions in the last budget, and when they came into effect just a couple of, or 2 months or 6 weeks after the last election. So these are important cost of living measures that help households We have seen a welcome reduction in inflation, which was a challenge of the former term in office, and the government had taken a range of steps to support households through that. But from the 1st of July, we've seen a 3.5% increase in minimum wage for minimum wage workers, which would benefit over 2.9 million workers nationwide. The additional energy bill rebate, so $150 off energy bills, which is on top of the $300 wiped from energy bills last year, will come into effect, and also support small business. The new incentive for housing apprentices, the cheaper home batteries, the helping small business grow with the instant asset write-off, super guarantee going to 12%, and of course our commitment to slash student debt by 20% with the introduction of the legislation in the other place today. These are all measures that we put in place last term that we are seeing come into effect from the 1st of July, and the government will continue to focus on how we help Australians deal with cost of living pressures over the next term in government.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Whittaker, first supplementary.
The Albanese Labor government is committed to building on the foundations laid in our first term by strengthening the role of women in the economy. What government policies that came into effect on 1 July will provide cost of living support to women across the country?
Thank you, Senator Whittaker. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. And again, thank Senator Whittaker for that excellent question. And it is probably appropriate to note that here in the Senate, 56.6% of senators are women, and on our side, 65% of our senators are women. We strongly believe in representation of gender equality in representation and leadership. We're seeing that across our caucus, and that's influencing some of the decisions that we took in the last term, and will continue to have women and women's economic equality and addressing gender inequality as a core and central priority for the Albanese Labor government. Since the 1st of July, on top of the measures that I outlined before, including the increase to the minimum wage, we're seeing the increase in paid parental leave to 24 weeks. We're now having super paid on government on PPL, which is for the first time ever, which will again help women with some of the pressures they've been getting there. The Commonwealth prac placements,
you,
and
Minister,
of course
the time for
the
answering
HECS
has
debts where
expired.
women have.
Senator Whittaker, second supplementary.
The Albanese Labor government got straight back to work after the election on the 3rd of May, because we know there isn't a day to waste when it comes to building a better future and supporting Australians with the cost of living. How will the government continue to deliver these policies that focus on Australians?
Thank you, Senator Whittaker. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, as Senator Whittaker outlined in her question, we haven't wasted a day since the election. The election result was very clear. Well, you may not have been working, but we were. Yeah. You may only work when you come here. Yeah, Senator Scarr, but we work non-stop. Inside the chamber, outside the chamber, we are at work. Cabinet's been meeting, ERC's been meeting. We've been meeting with our departments. We've been implementing policies that we took to the election. We've been making the decisions that need to be made in order to implement all of the commitments we made to the Australian people. That is the approach we've taken. We've seen a contrast, I would suggest, with those opposite, where we've seen a fair bit of infighting, a fair bit of taking each other down, trying to point the finger about who was to blame for probably the worst federal campaign anyone in this chamber has ever seen. But aside from that, we have been working to implement our agenda.
Has expired. Senators, I have Senator Tyrrell on the list. She's not here, and it hasn't been indicated to me that anyone else is taking her question. If she does come in, I will give her the opportunity to respond, but I now intend to go to Senator Bragg.
Thank you very much, President, and congratulations on your re-election as our President. But my question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Can the Minister please advise the Senate if the government will meet its housing target of 1.2 million new houses?
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. I'm trying to find the tab. Here we go. We do have an ambitious target, Senator Bragg, and we make no apology for that. We have an ambitious target because we want to add to housing supply, and I know that those opposite forget that there are two sides to reducing housing prices. One, obviously, is to provide assistance, as we are, through to first home buyers, through the Help to Buy scheme and so forth. But the other is to add to supply. So obviously this is an ambitious target, but Australia needs an ambitious target, and we need to all work together towards that ambitious target. We need to train more tradies. We need to cut red tape. We need to ensure that we build more local infrastructure. We need to make investments in social housing.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Cash.
Point of order in relation to relevance. Great explanation on your aspirations. Will you meet your housing target of 1.2 million homes?
Thank you, Senator Cash. I'll draw the minister back to the question. Minister Wong.
I started with an answer to that. Yes, this is an ambitious target. Yes, it is an ambitious target. But you know what, Senator Bragg? We're going to keep working to meet it. How about you stop blocking it? How about you stop blocking it? Because Australia would have been a long way further down the path to building more homes if you hadn't have teamed up with the Australian Greens to stop to prevent passage of legislation that would have enabled more supply. I mean, I do find it remarkable, Senator Bragg, that you block one of the key measures to deliver more supply, and then you come in here and say, "Oh, you're not going to meet your target." I mean, really, is anybody wonder why? The Australian people so comprehensively rejected those kind of tactics, Senator? Now, I invite you. You are someone about whom I have a great deal of regard. I think you're one of the
Thank you, Minister
much
Wong.
more
The time for
intelligent people
answering
on
has
that side.
expired. Order. 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 When the chamber has come to order, I will invite Senator Bragg to ask his first supplementary. Order. Order, particularly on my right. Order. Senator Bragg, first supplementary.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister. Advice from the Independent Department of the Treasury has stated that the government's housing target, and I quote simply, will not be met. Minister, is the Treasury's advice incorrect?
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Minister Wong.
Senator, and I apologise, I'm sorry if I've done damage to your career by saying something nice about you, but my point was it would be good in this space if those opposite could perhaps jettison the obstruction for once. I think we all believe that more houses need to be built in this country. It is an ambitious target. We make no apology for an ambitious target. You need an ambitious target if you're actually going to make a measurable difference in terms of Australia's housing supply. I appreciate that. I think we all appreciate the level of ambition, but we are also committed.
Mr Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Bragg.
Point of order, President. The question was very clear. I'm seeking advice as to whether the Treasury's official advice is incorrect or not.
Yes, and I believe the minister is being relevant. You're talking about the targets, and that's how the minister is responding. Minister Wong.
Well, Senator, I've explained to you it is an ambitious target and that we make no apology for that. Now, I'm sure that you can spend a lot of time talking to Treasury about their advice. You can spend a lot of time trying to tell everyone that this is.
Thank you, Minister.
This is a
the time for
idea.
answering has expired.
We want to get
Minister Wong, I'm going to invite Senator Bragg to ask his second supplementary.
Well, thanks very much. Okay, Minister, maybe we'll just try and change tack a little bit. So how many homes have been completed under the Housing Australia Future Fund agenda as at today?
Great question.
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Order. 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 I'm not calling Senator Wong until there is silence. Order. Order. Senator Cash, I've called order. Minister Wong. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Now, just to clarify, the senator is talking about the Housing Australia Future Fund, which he blocked for 2 years. Is this right? I just wanted to be clear that what he is asking me for a progress report on is the fund he and worked with Senator Faruqi and others to block for 2 years. Well, isn't that interesting? So, Senator, or for a number of years. Senator, what I would say to you, I don't have information as at today about the operations of the fund.
Order.
I'm sure that someone will provide it. But I would say to you, Senator, what I will tell you is this. Australians know who wants to build houses, and Australians know who wants to block the building of houses, and they made their views on that very clear at the last election.
Thank you, Senator Wong. Senator Tyrrell.
Thank you, President. My question is for the Minister representing the Minister for Health and Ageing, Senator McAllister. A Roy Morgan survey from July 2025 found that smoking rates have increased since the federal government's vaping sales ban was introduced in mid-2024. While the number of vapers have fallen slightly by 40,000, the number of people smoking factory-made cigarettes has gone up 120,000 since the year ending September 24. Amongst Australians aged 18 to 24, the situation is the same. 2 young Australians reports taking up smoking cigarettes for every young Australian taking up vaping. I'm offering this as context to demonstrate that the question I'm asking is not hypothetical. My question is, would the Albanese government consider the ban on vaping a success if it reduces the number of vapers and increases the number of smokers?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister McAllister.
Well, President, I thank Senator Tyrrell for her question, and I can be very clear about this. Our objective is to protect people, and in particular young people, but all people, from the harms that arise from both smoking and from vaping. And it is why our vaping reforms are so significant, because as you will know, I'm sure, in the community in which you live, many parents were deeply worried about the rates of vaping and the levels of vaping that were appearing in young people, in children and in young adults. And some of the evidence was suggesting that the promise that vaping, in fact, would be a pathway for people to cease smoking was, in fact, not being realised, and instead what was occurring was that vaping, in some instances, was leading to children taking up smoking, or young people taking up smoking. And it's why we placed such an emphasis on these reforms. We acknowledge that it will take time to see significant decreases in vaping and smoking, but we're here for the long haul. We want a healthier Australia for future generations. We're working against 2 big opponents. We are up against big tobacco and we are up against organised crime. And so, to date, the Therapeutic Goods Administration, Australian Border Force have seized more than 10 million illicit vapes, with a current street value of almost $500 million since January 2024. And the evidence that we rely upon is the most significant body of evidence comes from the Generation Vape project. And it actually shows that the rate of vaping is dropping from 20 to 18% among 18 to 24-year-olds between 2023 and now.
Thank you, Senator McAllister. Senator Tyrrell, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. The Department of Health describes the Cochrane Review as high-quality independent evidence. The Australian Pregnancy Care Guidelines reference Cochrane every 4th page. In fact, Australian taxpayers fund it every year by the National Health and Medical Research Council. Yet the academics handpicked by the Albanese government to review vaping health impacts, who drew the opposite conclusion to the Cochrane Review, argued the Cochrane Review was unreliable. Does the Albanese government agree with Cochrane that there is high certainty evidence that electronic cigarettes—
Senator Tyrrell, the time for asking has expired. Minister McAllister.
President, in the absence of a question, I'm trying to think about useful information that I may provide to Senator Tyrrell. But I will say this, and I made reference to this in my answer to your primary question. 1 in 3 people who vape are likely to take up smoking. And that is why we see these two issues as interlinked. It's why it is now unlawful to supply, manufacture, import or sell a vape outside of a pharmacy setting. And it's also why at the same time we are cracking down on illicit tobacco, and we're putting the people who profit from this black market on notice. So we recently announced an additional sum of money, $156 million, to help tackle the tobacco black market, and that comes on top of an existing investment of $188.5 million that we made in January 2024 that provided resources for a major border force crackdown and strengthened cooperation between the Commonwealth, states and territories.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Tyrrell, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. You know, if you ban the sale of vapes but you permit the sale of cigarettes, isn't it completely predictable that nicotine-addicted people would start smoking cigarettes? When you make the best way to quit cigarettes illegal, and cigarettes the only legal consumer product that kills up to half of its users, when used exactly as intended by the manufacturer, you keep cigarettes legal, then really the question is, what else did you think was going to happen?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister McAllister.
I think, Senator Tyrrell, our objective is to see less people using either tobacco or vaping. And the reason that we pursue these interventions, as I'm sure you understand, are because these substances have really, really negative impacts on people's health. So if a person has an addiction to nicotine, then we would really strongly encourage them to consult their GP and obtain advice about the options for treating nicotine addiction. There is a range of support for people who want to quit smoking. There is a range of support who want to end the use of e-cigarettes. You can approach the Quit line. It's 137848. And it's also the case that there are some smoking cessation products that are subsidised on the PBS to provide financial support to help people quit smoking.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Payman.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Assistant Treasurer and Minister for Financial Services, Senator Gallagher. Last year, the then Minister released a consultation paper relating to unfair trading practices and committed to banning subscription traps, dynamic pricing and drip pricing. These reforms would provide an immediate benefit to Australians who find themselves trapped paying for subscription services that seem impossible to cancel. Submissions for the consultation closed in December. Minister, since then, what work has been done by the government in this area?
Thank you, Senator Payman. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much, President, and I thank Senator Payman for the question and for the heads up that she was wanting to ask a question on this. I heard her 2-minute statement, incidentally, as well, which covered off on this matter, and as was outlined in the question, this is an issue that the government has done quite a bit of work on. In fact, consultation started some time ago, last year, on a number of these areas. Late last year, consultation finishing in December 2024. On the this is an area that the Prime Minister has been very clear about, as has the Treasurer and the Assistant Minister to the Treasurer, who's been leading this work in the other place, Dr. Lee, I should say. 59 submissions were received, including 6 confidential submissions. Treasury has since then held a number of bilateral meetings and roundtables with stakeholders, including consumer advocates, industry groups and academics. In total, 138 written submissions have been received over the 2 rounds of consultation. This is an area where we have to work with the state and territory consumer affairs ministers. The government has considered the feedback provided and will focus on unfair trading practices reforms to address a range of manipulative practices, including unfair subscription practices, including subscription traps that make cancelling a subscription difficult, drip pricing practices where fees are hidden or added through the stages of a purchase, the use of dark patterns which manipulate or undermine consumer decision-making in digital interfaces. Treasury is now completing the regulatory impact analysis to inform decision-making on unfair trading practice reform and engaging with states and territories to settle a final reform proposal. We do have to have agreement with states and territories.
Senator Payman, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. I've been speaking to stakeholders as well, and they've raised with me further reforms such as requiring e-commerce websites to allow customers to check out as guests rather than forcing them to register an account with them, and compelling subscription services to send timely renewal reminders before charging customers, particularly when free trials of services end and become paid subscriptions. Will the government implement these reforms, Minister?
Thank you, Senator Payman. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator Payman for the supplementary. And some months ago, so last year, work started on a whole range of unfair trading practices and were considered by the consultation paper. I'm not sure if Senator Payman has seen that, but that covered subscriptions, as I mentioned. It covered the fact that mandating consumers have an online account and requiring them to provide unnecessary personal information in order to make a purchase, make it difficult to access customer support to raise a complaint or problem, subscription cancellation, so a range of areas. These are all areas the government has done work on, and if the stakeholders are raising this with Senator Payman, I have no doubt they've raised it through the government's process, which occurred several months ago. As I said, these areas are being pursued now through a regulatory impact analysis and with work with the states and territories, where we do have an intergovernmental agreement for Australian consumer law.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Payman, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Research by ING found that 32% of Australians who pay for subscriptions that they don't use say they forgot to cancel a free trial, while 23% forgot that they were subscribed at all. This is an issue that is affecting thousands of Australians across the country. When will the government legislate a ban on subscription traps and other unfair trading practices?
Thank you, Senator Payman. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, we certainly welcome Senator Payman's support for the reforms that we've started investigating last year and have held 2 consultation rounds on, and are developing up the regulatory impact analysis now in order to go forward with the agreement of the states and territories. This is a priority. It's been led by the government. It's been led by the ministers that identified a problem. The problems like the subscriptions, like not being able to cancel, or like providing too much information in order to access a purchase. All of those areas are problems that have been identified by this government and will be addressed by this government in cooperation with state and territory governments, as is required under Australian consumer law.
Thank you, Minister Gallagher. Senator Marielle Smith.
Thank you, President, and congratulations on your re-election. My question is to the Minister for Early Childhood Education, representing the Minister for Education, Senator Walsh. How is the Albanese Labor government delivering on our commitment to a better and fairer education system at all levels and for every Australian? And in particular, how is the government acting to make HECS fairer for students and young people?
Thank you, Senator Smith. Minister Walsh.
Thank you, President, and I thank my friend Senator Smith for her question. And my first question, we promised Australians that the first legislation a re-elected Albanese Labor government introduced would be to wipe 20% off the HECS debt of every Australian. And today, in this first week of this new parliament, we have introduced legislation to deliver exactly that, because our number one focus is continuing to deliver cost-of-living relief for the Australian people. This legislation will wipe $16 billion from the HECS debts of Australians. For someone with the average HECS debt of around $27,000, it will mean about $5,500 wiped off their debt. And it won't just benefit uni students. This legislation covers all help loans, including loans to apprentices and to other VET students too, because we know that whether you're studying at uni or TAFE, you're developing the skills that keep Australia moving. And we know that even though inflation has eased in our first term, cost of living remains a concern for many Australians, particularly young people. And that is why we are providing relief for those just starting their careers by wiping their debt. We know how important it is to get a good education, Education has the power to change lives. It has the power to build our country by giving people the skills they need to get good, well-paid jobs. And that's why Labor will always back the aspirations of Australians who want to go to uni or to TAFE. And that is why we are providing HECS relief as the first legislation of this 48th Parliament.
Thank you, Minister Walsh. Senator Smith, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. As part of our long-standing dedication to a better and fairer education system at all levels for every Australian, before the 2022 election, Labor committed to work with state and territory governments to get every school to 100% of its fair funding level. How will this commitment support young people across the country to get the education they need to thrive in work and in life?
Thank you, Senator Smith. Minister Walsh.
Thank you again, Senator Smith, and I am thrilled to confirm that the Albanese Labor government is delivering on this promise to fairly fund all Australian schools and all Australian students. All states and territories have signed up to the Better and Fairer Schools Agreement that delivers $16.5 billion in additional funding to our public schools. This represents the biggest new investment in public schools by the Australian government ever. This funding will give more than 2.6 million young people in Australia's public schools and millions more in the years to come the education they deserve and the opportunity to thrive. It pays for supports and reforms to help more kids keep up, catch up and finish school. This is a game-changer for public education and it's a life-changer for children.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Smith, second supplementary.
Minister, the Albanese Labor government is delivering on its commitments to ensure that young people get the benefits of their study before they start paying for it. How are the government's changes to HECS making it fairer for young people and allowing them to keep more of what they earn as they are getting started in their careers?
Thank you, Senator Smith. Minister Walsh.
Thank you, President. Well, in addition to wiping $20 billion off student debt, the Albanese Labor government is making HECS repayments fairer. We know that people shouldn't have to start paying off their HECS debt until their study starts paying off for them. And that is why we are raising the threshold where repayments kick in from just over $54,000 a year to $67,000 a year. So for someone earning $70,000, it will reduce the minimum repayments they have to make by $1,300 a year. This is a big deal. It's a big deal for young people when every dollar really counts as they're setting themselves up for the future. So for young Australians who are just out of uni, just getting started, this will take a weight off their back. No matter where you live or what your parents do, the Albanese Labor government is making sure the doors of opportunity are open for you.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Cadell.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Minister Wong. Last week I walked along the Ardrossan Jetty, saw hundreds of dead garfish, the occasional King George, whiting and things. They were all affected by the algal bloom. I took the time to visit several communities with the member for Grade, Mr Tom Venning, and met locals like Susanna Hall, who runs Port Vincent Gifts, and saw her income drop by 14%. On Monday night, the Prime Minister, when referencing a $14 million support package, told 730 report, "That's for science and research. It's also for clean-up. It's also for potential mitigation." He went on to say, "We're responding, giving support to the South Australian government." Minister, when will the Prime Minister give emergency support to South Australian communities and businesses?
Thank you, Senator Cadell. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Cadell, for the question. And if I may say, thank you also for the comments. I thought your interview on ABC this morning, I didn't agree with all of it, obviously, but did demonstrate a real... Would you like me? You want me to flatter you too, Paul? I'll get to you, okay? No, but as a South Australian, I think I felt like you understood, as I do, and as so many of us do, what is happening in South Australia. And I was really pleased that Senator Watt went to Adelaide on Monday and engaged with the community there and had a look at what was occurring. I think it was on Glenelg Beach, West Beach. So got to see firsthand, and I think we are all deeply concerned by the widespread marine species death occurring in my home state, and we have acted to provide the government with $14 million to support their response to this event, and the Premier put out a press release, I think it was yesterday, which set out the various parameters or bases of the assistance, which includes clean-up, includes coastal monitoring, includes small business grants and so forth, and I'm sure you're across the detail of it. But I think there is a more profound problem here, which is we know that the climate is changing, and we know that the best advice to date, and I appreciate there's going to be a Senate inquiry and scientists are also grappling with an event that we've never seen before, but that the advice to date tells us that in part a marine heat wave is one of the drivers behind this, and we know our oceans are warming. Now, I have spent a lot of my life on that coastline.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Cadell, first supplementary.
Minister, when we went down to the local caravan park at Stansbury, run by the Stansbury Progress Association, they told me in the 48 hours prior to arriving there they'd had 10 cancellations for November holiday season. That's 10 families choosing already not to spend their holidays down there. How much of the $14 million that the federal government has given will go to supporting regional tourism operators and other businesses who are going to be out of money for some time into the future?
Thank you, Senator Cadell. Minister Wong.
Well, as I understand it, Senator, and the comments of the Prime Minister and the Premier reflect this, this is a jointly funded $28 million package which is intended to assist with science and research, and intended to assist with industry assistance in the form of small business support grants. That's obviously a South Australian program, but we've contributed $14 million to this package. And there is, of course, also, as part of that package, additional funding for $4 million towards clean-up efforts along the beaches and coastline. I think, Senator, one of the differences between Senator Cadell and you, Senator McKenzie, is he hasn't sought to play politics with this. We know what Senator McKenzie is like, don't we? We know what Senator McKenzie is like. You're always having a go about anything, and
thank you, Minister.
Always
the time for answering has
before.
expired. Senator Cadell, second supplementary.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Bally was an oyster grower from Stansbury region who told me he's been unable to sell a single oyster at the time for 79 days because of the infection. That's now 84 days. And Bart Butson told me about a Port Wakefield fisherman, fellow fisherman, a guy who in 2008 swam 6 hours after his boat sunk, whose catch quota is 7.5 tonnes of calamari, but is able to catch 9. How much of this money is going to the fishing industry and commercial fishers in South Australia?
Thank you, Senator Cadell. Minister Wong.
Well, first, I am very aware of the impact on our fishers. It's obviously the gentleman you described represents one of a number in the industry, and there are many. Well, because this toxic bloom is lethal for finfish. That's obviously affected a lot of commercial fishing as well. And there is, of course, the concern about aquaculture, depending on how far it spreads. I'm not in a position to go through the detail of the grants because we don't administer them, Senator, but I would say I think we all recognise this is unprecedented in scale. It is caused the destruction of marine life. It is an environmental or ecological disaster, and it is affecting key industries. And obviously we want to work out why this happens and how we can avert it happening again.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Sterle.
Well, thank you, President, and congratulations on your re-election. My question is to the Minister for Industry and Innovation, none other than Senator Ayres. Many Australian smelters are in negotiations with the Commonwealth state governments about their future. Can the Minister update the Senate on these negotiations?
Thank you, Senator Sterle. Senator Ayres.
Thank you. I'd add my congratulations, President, on your election. There are indeed several industrial smelters around Australia that are facing significant challenges. From the first day of my appointment, I've been very focused on working through the challenges at each of these facilities with a view to Australia's national interest. They include the Whyalla Steelworks, of course, Tomago Aluminium, the old Mount Isa Mines facility, which is currently operated by Glencore, Nyrstar's Port Pirie and Hobart smelters, and the Liberty Bell Bay manganese smelter. They all face different markets, different cost pressures and distinct challenges at each site. But they do have some things in common. They all add value to Australian minerals to turn them into Australian metals, to strengthen our economic resilience and to create good jobs in regional Australian communities. Think of Liberty Bell Bay. Manganese ore mined in Groote Island in the far north is shipped south, where a smelter powered by clean hydropower turns it into ferromanganese and silicomanganese. From there it goes into steel, made everywhere from Port Kembla to the United States. It's a historically profitable operation with strong medium to long-term prospects. Each of these smelters are facing industrial and mining subsidies and non-market practices in global trade. It's a challenge that's been faced by many of our partner economies. I'll have more to say over coming months on our national approach to developing Australia's industrial capability, but I do want to make a few observations about the Albanese Labor government's response, probably in response to your supplementary question, Senator Sterle.
Thank you, Minister Ayres. Senator Sterle, first supplementary.
I reckon you can, Minister. Minister, can you provide further detail about the causes of the challenges facing the smelting sector? What is the Albanese Labor government doing to address these, and why is the government taking this approach?
Oh, just a moment. Lovely that you are so keen to answer, but please wait for the call. Minister Ayres.
I am, as you know, President, always enthusiastic, and of course, in my first question, learning how many words it is I can fit into a 2-minute response, and indeed, time is rapidly drifting away on this one. Thank God there's a time limit, Senator Watt says. Well, the Whyalla intervention demonstrated that effective action, coordinated between federal and state governments and focused on the national interest, delivers a long-term pathway for industry. Firms in this sector should learn the right lessons from that intervention. They should expect me and the government to act consistent with our broader Future Made in Australia national interest framework to protect domestic capabilities that are in the national interest. That is not a blank cheque. I'll be respectful of firms that operate these facilities, but I expect firms to deliver investment, sound business practices and good governance.
Thank you, Minister Ayres. Senator Sterle, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. This is so exciting. Beyond short-term challenges, can the minister explain the Albanese Labor government's Future Made in Australia vision for the smelting sector, Minister? And how will the government ensure it delivers for the Australian people and the economy?
Thank you, Senator Sterle. Minister Ayres.
Well, the smelting sector is a pathway to our vision for a future made in Australia, a more resilient, prosperous economy where all Australians, particularly Australians in our regions and outer suburbs, can get good jobs. In August, I'll convene a metals and minerals processing roundtable and the lead-up to the productivity roundtable to discuss how smelting can drive long-term investment and productivity growth. The opportunity is clear. We have the world's best renewable and mineral resources. This gives us a strong comparative and competitive advantage, particularly related to our energy advantage, our renewable energy advantage, producing green iron and green aluminium in the national interest to deliver good jobs, economic prosperity, and that is why the previous government and this government will continue on this trajectory, making investments like the $2 billion green aluminium production credit opposed by those opposite.
Minister Cash. I call that Minister Wong.
I seek leave to make move a motion relating. Oh, sorry. I ask that further questions be placed on.